Building it brick by brick.
But as you can see, I'm in front of the Capitol building, and I am actually at Senate Park. It's this little park in front of the Capitol building on one side of the Capitol building. It's got this lovely fountain back here. And I actually have to come out of my office in order to live stream because I don't work at home anymore. So I can't just write notes and hop online and talk to y'all. So I have to come out, take a walk, be sociable, brave the elements, which is great. And, the past few days, I guess, I've been in a really funky mood. I don't know what has been going on with me, but I guess maybe it's just been everything that's been going on globally, everything that's been going on with American policy and politics, but I've just been in a crappy mood. And I've wanted to live stream for a couple of days, but every time I tried, the first thing that came to my mind was you mother. So I figured, okay, let's just wait until we get in a better frame of mind, Jax, and get your thoughts together. So I've been thinking a lot about this incident with United Airlines. And this man who was brutally and viciously dragged off that plane. He had paid for his ticket. United overbooked, as all airlines do. And then they asked for volunteers to leave the plane, to be rebooked on another flight because they needed to get their crew to another airport. And if the crew couldn't get to another airport, then another plane that was waiting in another city was going to have to be canceled. So, I mean, it's this whole big story, but the way that man was treated was absolutely just horrendous and disgusting. I really started thinking, though, I think people are missing the point behind what really happened on that United Airlines flight. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Thanks for joining me. Did they do it again? They just threatened someone with handcuffs because someone more important showed up. Let me talk to you for a few minutes today about what's really going on with these incidences, because this isn't the first time that a paying passenger has been roughed up on an airline, but nothing's new as far as these types of things are concerned. The only thing new are the cameras. What's really happening here is a result of greed. That's people are trying to parse it down to any particular policy that's wrong, or any particular practice that's wrong, and law enforcement is wrong, and all of that is true. But let's just be real honest about what's really going on here. What happened on the United flight is a symptom of America's long ignored disease of greed. And it hasn't just shown up on this United flight. It's shown up everywhere. There has been social unrest where agents of the state and people in authority have abused individual people or groups of people. Because something I have begun to understand, I began to understand it a while ago. If someone is working hard to convince me that I should hate somebody else, somebody in power, somebody in authority is working hard to convince me that I should hate someone else, trust me, they are profiting from that. I mean, because otherwise, why is anybody else that interested and invested in me hating someone else? You know why? Hey, Suzanne. Hey, Laura. You know why? You know why people in power and politicians and all of these politically connected multinational conglomerate CEOs are just so invested in making sure that we hate gay people, or that we hate black people, or that we hate poor people, people who are on welfare? The reason they're so invested in that is because when we hate entire groups of people, see, we stop caring what politicians do to them. Right? See, if politicians and the complicit conservative Republican pastors, yeah, I'm calling y'all out too. I'm calling my Christian brothers and sisters out too. If we can convince people that there's something wrong with gay people, that we should not care that their rights are being violated, then we stop caring when politicians start passing legislation that actually violates their rights, takes their rights away. Then we don't care when these groups of people don't have full and equal access to opportunity in this country. We don't care that most of the people in that group of people are poor. Because after all, we've been convinced that there's something wrong with them. We've been convinced that it's okay to hate them. So then when they're forced to live outside of the system, when they're forced to live on the margins, when they're forced to just barely get by, and when they're suffering and they're struggling, we don't care. Because we've bought into the lie that these people in power have told us that those people don't matter. That's why this thing with United Airlines happened. It's not necessarily because the CEO or any of the flight attendants or even the law enforcement people are have an Asian bias. I'm not saying they don't. They might. But greed is the underlying disease for every other ism we have allowed to flourish in this country. See, because the isms make it easier for us to hate other people, and it also serves the purpose of deflecting our attention from the people who really have their hands in all of our pockets. See, as long as we're sitting here talking about Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization, so I can't support Black Lives Matter. As long as we're sitting here talking about, well, gay people do things in a way that I don't like, and they live a lifestyle that violates my religious beliefs. As long as we're sitting here talking about, I think women should stay at home and be the caretakers for their families, we're focusing on bullshit that is honestly none of anybody else's business most of the time, how people choose to live their lives, instead of focusing on the people who are telling us we're supposed to be hating all these folks and asking them, why are you so vested in me hating gay people? Why do you care? Why are you so interested in what gay people do or don't do? Isn't the point of being an American that we are all born with what we were told were inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that have been endowed upon all of us by our Creator? Isn't that the point of being an American? But no, but these people have made the point of being an American us feeding into our personal biases so that they can make more money. Because trust me, y'all, white people hating black people having a problem with gay people, people having a problem with women being CEOs, guess who doesn't profit off of us feeling that way? Us. I mean, seriously, as much as people have criticized Black Lives Matter, have any of the people who have criticized Black Lives Matter and called them all kinds of names and likened them to the KKK, have those people gotten wealthier when Black Lives Matter hasn't protested? Have they benefited somehow in their personal lives by denouncing Black Lives Matter? Really? Of course not. Here you have a group of people out here who are fighting for equal justice and protection under the law that we are all supposed to enjoy, but because of our personal biases, these people who have to continue to support the mafia-style police unions, who have to keep the budgets of the militarized police departments pumped up and full of money and gifts from the Department of Defense in order to continue to imprison poor black, brown, and poor white people who are mostly imprisoned for non-violent, low-level drug offenses, and they have to keep doing that because they have to continue to feed the prison industrial complex, because the prison industrial complex has to continue to grow because the investors in the prison industrial complex have to keep making money. So you and I, my white brothers and sisters, y'all have to keep believing the idea that it's Black Lives Matter that are the problem, that it's uppity black people that are the problem, that it's black people who don't obey the police that are the problem. Not the fact that there is injustice and racism built into the system that we have proof of now, that we see it every day. No, that's not the problem. Some of you are convinced that it's us, that we complain too much. Why? Because the people who are convincing you of this have to continue to make money off of this division that we didn't create. Make no mistake, y'all, they're the ones creating the division. We're the ones calling it out. I mean, seriously, do you think your average conservative or otherwise Christian benefits in any way from being homophobic? I mean, I don't have stock in Chick-fil-A. I actually don't even like Chick-fil-A. But what do you think your average Christian gained by boycotting Chick-fil-A because or by boycotting some organization that was in support of gay rights? What did they gain? I mean, we're not talking about like the civil rights movement here, right? Where people boycotted institutions that wouldn't give black people jobs. No, there's nothing tangible to be gained from Christians who don't like, or who have been told that they shouldn't like, gay people. They don't gain anything by boycotting pro-LGBTQ businesses, but they're told that's what they're supposed to do if they're good Christians, if they're good Americans. And they're told that because that division has to be maintained, because the people who are sowing those divisions have to continue to make money off of the marginalization of LGBTQ people. Do you think your average person who honestly probably doesn't even think about disabled people, not because they're mean or evil, but because politicians don't talk about disabled people? Politicians don't say much of anything about the rights of disabled people. But, I mean, do you think your average person who goes about their day really not considering how difficult disabled Americans have it? Do you think they gain anything from? No, they don't. But by ensuring another group of people is left to fend for themselves on the margins of society, these politicians continue to rake in money because, see, their pie is bigger, because they are keeping more and more people from getting a slice of it. That's the point. That's the whole point behind this equal pay argument. That nobody in their right mind believes it's right to pay a woman less money than a man is paid for the same job. Nobody in their right mind believes that. I don't care what they believe about whether women should stay at home. Most reasonable human beings believe that people who do the same job, who have the same qualifications, should be paid the same. The only people who don't believe that are greedy bastards who are telling people that there's nothing wrong with women earning less money for the same job that a man does, because she has to take advantage of maternity leave, because she gets sick more, because she takes more time off to go and care for the children. Those are ridiculously lame excuses for not compensating people for the same job just because one of them is of a different biological gender and they know this, but because they keep us focused on these ridiculous, ignorant ass arguments that don't make any difference to anything, they keep us from questioning them about why they are so invested in having us believe these ridiculous, nonsensical arguments about why it's okay for us to be comfortable with disenfranchising or denying equal opportunity and access to other groups of people who aren't us. As long as we stay focused on how much we hate black people and how much we don't think slavery has any effect on what's going on today, as long as we stay focused on how much we don't agree with the quote unquote gay lifestyle, as long as we stay focused on what we think women should be doing in the home, as long as we stay focused on these issues, and I mean stay focused on these issues from the perspective of, this is my opinion and this is why I think you don't matter or your concerns don't matter. Because see, the history proves why our concerns about these issues matter. But we've got people in positions of authority telling everyone that none of this history makes any difference. It doesn't make any difference that at one time in this country, Native American people were forced by legislation to give up land that they and their ancestors had lived on for centuries before the first European came here. And by law, this government forced Native Americans, the original inhabitants of this land, to live on isolated, just absolutely unmanageable pieces of dirt in the middle of nowhere, and made them wards of the government by legislation. And the same government turns around, makes a bunch of treaties with them, hundreds, breaks every single one of them, and then tells them, oh, the land that we said we're going to allow you to have, we're going to take that from you and we're going to put pipelines through it and there's nothing you can do about it. That's, yeah, we don't care about it because it's racism, because we're conditioned to look at Native Americans and say, oh, well, if they didn't drink so much, oh, well, if they didn't have such drug problems in the Native American community, they would be able to do better if they just let go of the past. We're conditioned to think that of them. But we don't turn around and ask questions of the people who are telling them that you have to sit there and take your land being taken away from you. You have to take it and not complain. We are conditioned to not ask those people, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that? I thought they had rights. I thought they were Americans too. Because you see, then, folks, if we asked those questions of the people in power when they do the kinds of things that were done to Native Americans at Standing Rock, those questions, when we start to ask people in authority those kinds of questions, when they do those kinds of things that they've done to poor black people in Ferguson, Missouri, and in Chicago, Illinois, and in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and in Baltimore, Maryland, not just recently, but throughout the troubled history of racism and police brutality in this country, when we start asking the people in authority, not just elected officials, but our so-called religious leaders, why they are so vested in us hating LGBTQ people, when we start asking them, wait a minute, I thought we all had the same rights in this country. I thought they were Americans too, and I thought they had the same rights that I have. Why do you want me to be okay with you treating them differently? Because see, if we start asking them that question, folks, we will start to realize that eventually they'll get around to us. That's what this United Airlines incident is all about. It is just this system that is propped up by greedy opportunists finally getting around to you. Because for so long, so many people in this country looked at people from different groups being mistreated and said, well, you know, if they would just behave themselves, if they would just be respectful, if they would just follow the rules. It was always about what they should be doing in order not to have their rights violated. But it was never about why would you violate the rights of another American at all if we all have the same rights. See, I'm not saying that nobody has ever asked that question. Of course, people have asked that question. Of course, people have pushed back against these systems and agents of the state and our politicians and our religious leaders and our educators and our historians and everyday folks who have been just fine with violating the rights of certain groups of people as long as it's not me. Yeah, there have been people who have pushed back against that, but I am telling you, y'all, it hasn't been enough. And I know it hasn't been enough because look what happened to the Asian doctor on the United Airlines flight. They dredged up that man's so-called sordid past just like they did Mike Brown's. See, we were okay when it was done to people like Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin. But now that it's being done to a nice Asian doctor, now we're all outraged. And I'm here to tell you, you should have been outraged when it was done to our kids. When the government had the police doing vice raids on nightclubs in New York City, the only places where gay people could go in society and feel comfortable and be themselves and enjoy themselves, when the government had the police departments doing vice raids under the guise of stopping illicit drug and alcohol use and locking up gay men and women for being gay. We should have been outraged then, but too many of us weren't. So now we're outraged at a bathroom bill. That's how I know not enough people have been outraged at the intentional marginalization of specific groups of people by politicians and those in power. Because see, now it's not just them who are being targeted. Now it's you. And I say this because I don't want anyone to accuse me of sitting here with a "I told you so" attitude. I'm not going to lie and say that I haven't felt that on some days. I certainly have, because damn it, man, how long have black people been trying to tell America this is who we are? I was on a thread the other day and I was reading comments from all of these people about this United Airlines thing, and so many white people responded with, "Oh, what have we become? The heck do you mean? What have we become? This is who we have always been." But because it hasn't been you, it hasn't been the accomplished doctors, it hasn't been the business leaders, it hasn't been the so-called law-abiding, upstanding, straight white Christians who have been the targets of some of this behavior, some of these actions. Too many people have believed that it's us, that the problem has been with us. The problem's been because we don't have enough education. The problem's been because we're not patriotic enough. The problem's been because we lead a lifestyle that is inappropriate. The problem has been because we don't want to assimilate. The problem has always been us, and for too many Americans, the problem has never been the greedy people who we elect to work in that building behind me. for too long, we have believed every single thing the people in that building have told us to believe. The people in that building and their minions and their staffers and their lobbyists and their think tanks and their media outlets that they own and control and use to indoctrinate us. Oh, you think Fox News indoctrination is new? If you have a Roku or a streaming device, I need you to check out Propaganda TV. And I need you to understand how far back the conditioning of the American population goes. It goes back a long time. Fox News ain't new. They're just the newest, slickest version. MSNBC ain't new. They're just the newest, slickest version. They're just the 24-hour news cycle version. No, for too long, man, we have believed what these people have told us about each other. And instead of listening to each other talk about our struggles and explain, no, this is why we're angry, this is why we're fighting, and this is why we need you to help us, we have done their bidding, marched to their orders, and we have hated who they have told us to hate so that we could turn the other way while they legislated the demonization and the marginalization and the stripping away of rights and opportunities of certain groups of people. And that's given some of us this false sense of security that, hey, it's not happening to me, so why should I care? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm adhering to the American way of life. But see, United Airlines, that incident, I hope, has shown some of you that none of us are safe now. Because that's the thing about greed. Greed is never satisfied. Never. It wasn't enough for these people to profit off of the enforced and the manufactured and the created misery of poor black people. It wasn't enough for them to profit off of the misery and the disenfranchisement of LGBTQ people. It wasn't enough for them to profit off the marginalization of handicapped people. It wasn't enough for them to keep women out of the workforce. It's never going to be enough. So they're coming after you. And I guess I've been in some kind of a funky mood because after a while of sounding the alarm, after you know what's going on, you just get tired, man. You just get tired. You just get tired of talking about it. You get tired of being angry because you're angry all the time, because you see it all the time. You get tired of encountering people who still believe the lies, even though they see what's going on. They still believe it's not what you say it is. So you've got to you've got to go through this history over and over again. Then they argue with the history. They don't believe the history. and you just feel like you're going a little nuts. and I'm just, okay, I'm in the, you're in the laundry room now. You know, you're in the laundry room of your average, socially and historically aware African American now. This is how we all feel. Most of us pissed off all the time. Not because we have terrible lives, but because we have always seen the greed that this system called the American democracy was built on. We know the history behind it, and we've always known that they're going to come after you. That's what we've been trying to tell you. We've not been sitting here talking about the racist history of this country and the history of sexism and the history of brutality against the Native Americans because we want free. No, we're trying to save the whole damn country. We're trying to save all of us. but few people see it that way. And maybe sometimes we don't frame it that way. But it's a hard thing. Good Lord, it's a hard conversation to have when you're desperate and you're afraid and you're angry and you're frustrated and you know that more of the worst is coming because you've already lived through it. And you don't want to see other people go through what you've been through, but you know it's coming. That's what this United Airlines incident is. It is seriously just what some groups of people in this country have always been through. Most black people who have had interactions with the police have been that Asian doctor on that airline. Most older gay people who lived in New York and some of the other cities where those vice squads that I just told you about happened, they've been that Asian doctor on that airline. Some women who have been mistreated horribly trying to get ahead or just to get equal opportunity and recognition and pay in the work, they've been that Asian guy on that airline. And I can definitely speak for, from a black perspective, we've been trying to tell y'all that this United Airlines incident, this is what America has always been. But you haven't wanted to listen until it started happening to you. So, I guess my question is, what are you going to do now, America? What are you going to do now that you realize that it's racism and it's homophobia and it's sexism and it's ableism. It's all those things. And the reason we are conditioned to focus on those things is because it's so much easier to legislate the disenfranchisement of groups of people when we have targets to hate. And it's so much easier for the people who are pulling the strings to profit off of our hate. So much easier for them to do that because they lull us into this false sense of security by making us believe that we have valid reasons to hate these other groups of people because we're not like them. Well, now that those with the money and the power aren't making any distinctions in who they abuse for profit, what you going to do now? I have no idea what's going to happen with Trump and all of his shenanigans over in the Middle East, but I can tell you that's about greed too. Because Islamophobia, that's right up there with it. Why do you think we're bombing all of these countries in the Middle East? It's not to stamp out terrorism. It's to control the oil. It is all greed. And if you think it's just the conservatives who are guilty of this, you are wrong. Because some of the worst architects of some of the most crafty and best architects of some of the worst systems that have exacerbated the worst inequality in this country have come from Democrats. That doesn't make the Republicans better. That just means that the Democrats and the Republicans are different wings of the same rotten, destruction-carrying bird. That's it. So while some people spend their time having esoteric conversations about economic theory, that's fabulous. Knock yourselves out. While some people spend their time having wonderful conversations about which politician they should like or should support or who's a purist or who's a true progressive and who's a true this or pure that. Help yourself. Go right ahead. In the meantime, the people who actually hold the power will continue to steal from you and me, all of us, black, white, Asian, LGBTQ, disabled, able-bodied, women, men, Latino, Muslim, Christian. They will continue to steal our country from under us, because we are going to continue to focus on why we hate each other, because that's what they've conditioned us to do. And it was all for the end game, us having nothing and them having everything. Now that you know the truth, what are you going to do about it? So we'll be hanging out with you guys, hopefully this Sunday, live at 5 in Luqman Nation, 5 p.m. Eastern Time this Sunday. Tonight, I'm going to finish up my series on the history of Standing Rock. I've just talked about that and why Standing Rock, what happened at Standing Rock, isn't new. I'm going to be talking about that tonight over on Brick by Brick with me, Jacquie and Luqman, at 9 p.m. And we're going to keep having these conversations about what's really going on. And shoot me a post, an email. Let me know your thoughts. Ask some questions. Maybe I can answer some. I don't know. But I just had to get that off my chest today, you guys. Thank you very much. Megan Rose, thanks so much for joining me. And hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon.
Building it brick by brick.